Oddity takes place in Orland, at this kind of secluded home castle that this couple is renovating. It's a doctor who works at this mental institution. His wife Darcy, played by Carolyn Bracken, is she's there for the remodel. It's remote. It's desolate. There's no phone signal. Right at the beginning of the film, she is implied she's brutally murdered by what seems to be an escaped mental patient. A very kind of cliche setup. Um, the husband grieves, but also very quickly moves on to another relationship with one of his staff members. This is all suspicious to Danny, who is the twin sister of the woman who's murdered, also played by Carolyn Bracken. Danny is blind and owns an antique shop of oddities, where she claims to be a medium and a psychic, and to be able to, touch an object and see into its history, to have it tell something about her. She's not convinced that everything about her sister's murder is as was told. She wants to go out to the house and kind of bring some of her things along to help kind of solve this mystery, see if she can, as a blind woman, use her psychic abilities to kind of uncover the mystery that something may or may not be going on. And part of what she does is she brings this very creepy, like life size of wooden figure out to the secluded castle thing, which is really creepy for everyone involved. I think there's a lot of things that work in this film. I think there's some things that don't. But let's get into it. Zach, what do you think?
So I liked Oddity. I think I should say that up front. But my expectations were nil. I had heard this movie has no money. I didn't know anything about the director. I don't know anybody in the cast except for one person, Gwilym Lee, who played Brian May in Bohemian Rhapsody, and he's also Nicholas Holt's friend in The Great, the show on Hulu. That's it. I've seen that guy in two things, and I had forgotten about Bohemian Rhapsody. Other than that, I don't know anybody in it. I don't know anything about it. I just heard it was this cool kind of indie horror. So going in with that, great time. I actually had a great time. I thought it was a really simple premise, really clever, open, and I didn't know where it was going, but it pretty much got there, and I felt like, okay, that's good. That's good, like 90-minute little something. I think it's a movie that suffers from its own success. I think if you hear about it and your friends tell you to watch it, and people are like, oh my God, you got to go see this new sleeper hit Oddity, that's probably too much. That's probably too much, but like for what's here, it's got good basics. I think it's a great follow-up after McCarthy's previous work, Caveat, which I have also not seen, but I hear that this is like growing on that. I should probably go back and visit that at some point. Like probably looking at a bigger feature with a bigger budget to follow this, I would imagine. Damian McCarthy's probably going to get some money. I'd imagine somebody like Lionsgate or somebody, Blumhouse, somebody will pick him up. Maybe look at a Marvel movie. Somebody's going to do something with what's here, because I think Oddity hits the basics real good, but it is basic, and that's okay. Like it's actually kind of funny we're playing this opposite Megalopolis, but where do you want to start talking about this thing?
So I want to get into the plot. So I will also come out and say I was actually a little disappointed in this, surprisingly, because I was the one who was telling Zach, I was like, we got to watch this. I've heard so much. We got to do it. We got to see it. And then and then I was a little disappointed. I think for one thing, the plot is, I found to be very predictable. I feel like you expect there's certain things that you will expect to happen. Those things that you expect to happen inevitably happen. Like it doesn't take any like wild turns or anything. Not that it needs to, but like the direction that it very intentionally goes isn't very, like, I feel like there's supposed to be these big reveals, and they're not at all. They're not super surprising. It does have some good scares, but it also has a lot of jump scares that just don't work. It falls into lots of cliches, and it also has some really brilliant stuff. Like there were scenes where I was really bored right next to a scene where I was totally engaged. Like when we first meet Danny, the blind medium, she has a great scene where she kind of monologues about the stuff in her shop and how she can touch things. Like there's some scenes that work really well, but then they're next to scenes that are so boring that I was just like, oh, can we get on? Let's move past this. So it's up and down for me, but I think they're yeah. I mean, hopefully it's the kind of thing that the director would get a better project from this afterwards.
Yeah, so cinematography's real lockdown, almost like old Fincher, but without like the range of lenses that he has now. Like your camera is hardly ever moving; it is almost always on a tripod, locked. You're never even really panning. You're never zooming. It's real still, and our open is very quiet. It's this young woman in this house. There's a couple of odd things in it, like this tent she's got like up in kind of the entryway, but otherwise it's fine. And I was drawn in by its opening like engagement between her and this man outside. It's night. She's just gotten off the phone with her husband. He's working nights. He'll be back in the morning. So she's alone out there for the evening. She goes out to her car. She grabs something, comes back in, hears a noise at the door she has closed, opens up the peephole, and there's a man there, creep, right? He's got this crazy hair and this wild eye. And he says, ma'am, you've got to come out. There's somebody in there with you. I saw him. They ran in. And she says, who are you? He says, I know your husband. I'm one of his patients. I'm telling you, there's someone in there. She says, you better leave or I'll call the police. He goes, please call him. Because there's somebody in there with you. There's somebody in the house. And it immediately presents this conundrum, right? Like, am I alone in here or is that guy crazy? And he told me he's a patient, so he is crazy, but is he crazy? Not like, it's good. And then the exploration of that, like down the rabbit hole, right? Meeting Danny and her shop of oddities and seeing these sets that are like so simple, so bare bones. Like the sets are, I mean, this entryway to this house is all you see of the house and a bedroom. So it's functionally one long set that they shoot on the upper and lower floor of. Like Danny's oddity shop is 2 walls. Like you never even see the whole place. You never see an exterior. They never show it. You see some insides of a hospital that's like not really a hospital, but they just retrofitted this old building, like just kind of make it work. And you're absolutely right about the tropes. It specifically, McCarthy said this in an interview from IMDb Trivia. He, quote, cherry picked from horror tropes to make Oddity, all kinds of stuff. So in that way, like, I do think it is a bit predictable. You see some scares coming for sure. But I was still charmed by him. Like, I think the way it mixes them up, the way it blends them together, and again, no expectations. Like, I had a good time. I think it's a solid streaming feature for sure. It's the kind of thing you would see on like a Netflix or pop up on Hulu, Amazon Prime, even like Redbox back in the day would run something like Oddity, and like you would get it for a couple bucks, and then go, you know what, that was kind of neat. Like I didn't think it was going to be so simple, especially when it gets into its supernatural elements, which are like stunningly simple film wise. Like you're not getting any grand CGI, you're not getting any huge VFX. Like no, none of that. None of that's an Oddity.
I think what did interest me is like he has this overall thesis, which is this idea of how we automatically trust. It's about trust and power and how we automatically trust certain figures in our world, things like police, doctors, and things, and how kind of that could be problematic in that how and vice versa is the way you would trust maybe a police officer over a homeless person. And while both people are both capable of great evil but also great dignity, and so it's kind of challenging those notions of like where we just kind of automatically put our trust in people in certain professions. So that's a very interesting kind of central theme. Uh, and he does, that's what he's exploring, but it feels like it's centered around that. It's the movie centered around this theme and not like, well, let me think of a great story to tell along the way. It's a movie that feels like it, I've said this before, that's built backwards, where he thought of a great ending and then built the rest of it instead of from forward to back.
Yeah, that's actually a really good read. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
um, the oddity stuff, I wished it just worked better. When we first meet Danny, she tells this great story about this bell that summons. It's like an old hotel bell, and if you ring it, it'll summon like the dead bellboy that died because of it, something like that. And like that's great. It's a really good creepy story, and it's a object. And but then like the thing that she brings to the house is like this big wooden thing, and I was like, well, I know exactly what that thing's gonna what that thing's gonna do, and I'm waiting the whole movie for it to happen.
Right. Yeah, pretty good cursed objects, I think, in Oddity, even though you don't see, well, you see a lot of them, but they don't have much use in the film. Really, her like curiosity shop is kind of like where these things are. There's even a segment like in the back with this like special ones on this wall. She's got like this haunted bellhop bell, and she's got the toy monkey from Jordan Peele's production house, like with the clanging cymbals, right? It's got one of those things in there. Yeah. And this like very odd, like wooden man that you may have seen in the marketing, like with this big screaming face, like real creepy, real strange. And waiting to kind of see what's going to happen with these is a big part of it, right? Like that curiosity as you kind of lean into the screen and go, okay, what's going to happen here? So there's something's up for sure. I know I'm watching a horror movie. Like something's going to happen with this stuff. And slowly seeing these things come by one is a lot of fun. Additionally, you get a big benefit from this other character. What's her name? Yana. Yeah, this woman who's at this house where Danny is kind of like investigating what happened on the 1 year anniversary of her sister's demise. She's like trying to figure out what had happened and if she was okay when she passed. And Yana, who does not want to be there but is kind of inadvertently trapped because she can't find her car keys, she kind of plays like the audience. She doesn't know anything about this stuff. She doesn't believe in ghosts. She is creeped out by the wooden man and by Danny, and she slowly just becomes more and more unnerved by like the awful stuff that's going on. She reminds me of like a couple of the teenagers in old Evil Dead, right? In the cabin. They're like, let's just get out of here. Let's just leave. You know, like it's good time. Like good horror characters to have somebody kind of hanging out who doesn't agree with any of this and just wants to get out of here as fast as she can. So that's one of those tropes that I think works well in the movie, but is also like very on the nose, predictable. Like you could see right through that character, paper thin, but fun in the best way.
Yeah, like I said, there are things that work. That there's parts that they have very combative dialogue between Yana and Danny. It's great when they're arguing, and she's like, "Do I look stupid? Because you look stupid. Do you like? Are you calling my sister stupid?" Like it's very, very. The claws are out between both of them, and that's the other thing. It's like, oh, the husband apparently has moved on, and is now in a new relationship not long after with his new, much younger intern or whatever. And it's like, come on, man.
I know. Yeah. It bears its teeth a little early as far as the plot's concerned, which is a shame because, like I said, it does such a good job of building up these like cursed objects. And as like the day slowly creeps into night and the sun starts to go down and things start to get eerie around the house, like that stuff all is pretty good for what's there. But yeah, like I didn't think about it till we talked about it before the show. You're right. It really does kind of show you where it's going a little too early. A little tightening up in the script. That's all. Little something.
Yeah, it's a low budget thing. That means low budget script is as well. Like a few more passes, it could have been more polished. Like I said, there's some great scenes. There's some moments that are genuinely creepy, and then there's things that are just really tropes or just there to get from point A to point B and doesn't make a lot of sense. And so it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Well, let's wrap this up. I want to make sure we get to the end of it. Andy, would you recommend Oddity?
I would say save it for streaming if you have something like Shudder. I think horror heads will probably dig it. Just if you're a fan of horror, it does have some good moments, and if like I said, it is more available now than it has been. I wonder if my opinion would have been different had I seen it without any hype. But who knows? So I think again, your mileage may vary. Save it for streaming.
Yeah, it's on Shudder now. I would recommend for streaming. I think streaming is kind of the perfect place to watch it. I feel like if I had gone to see it in theaters, I'd be pleased by the runtime, but maybe a little disappointed that like it didn't get grander in vision or scope. But like watching it at home, like cozy on the couch under a blanket, is a good time, dude. Like would recommend. I think Shudder's fun. Shudder. I think Oddity is fun, and it's available on Shudder, where there's also a bunch of other movies for October. Not sponsored by Shudder. Don't know why I'm plugging them, but that's the show. That's episode 269 of Off Script. My God, already behind us. I'm so glad we got to talk about Megalopolis. Andy, what are we watching next week?
Next week is a big week. Joker Folie à Deux, aka Joker 2, aka Joker Shared Madness, comes out this week. It's the huge follow up from 2019's Joker. That was $1 billion film. I don't think this is going to be $1 billion film. It's gotten kind of mixed reviews, so we're gonna check it out, see what all that's about. I'm definitely excited to see that. Loved Joaquin Phoenix as Joker. Love Lady Gaga. We're also going to be taking a look at The Wild Robot, which I've seen, but is I think a great film. I'm not going to get into it too much, but it was #1 at the box office. It's a good, friendly family film. And in case you don't know, just the real quick, the premise is a robot kind of crash lands in this forest and has to raise a duckling, a gosling, in order to fly in time for the migration. And there's lots of fun. There's great animation, great score, lots of stuff.
Yeah.
We'll get into it more next week.
Vivid visuals is what I recall from the Wild Robot trailer. I was like, oh, dude, like huge colors, like big stuff, like looks like a really good time. Lupita Nyong'o at the front. Can't wait to see her again. And of course,
well, I'll put this under our FYI releases. Salem's Lot is going to be out on Max this weekend as well. Kicking off our Halloween weekend, a remake of that property based on the book by Stephen King. That's only 2 hours and not 3 hours like the 1979 version. So that's going to be out on Max. And some other ones, A Different Man, starring Sebastian Stan, and The Outrun also released today. Those are probably going to be real small or limited release. Rather, The Outrun is Saoirse Ronan's starring, but also her directorial debut, about a London party girl who battles addiction in her homeland of Scotland.
oh, I didn't know she directed that. Shoot, I'm gonna check that out. Yeah, and also stoked to check out Joker. God, we're seeing that in 70mm IMAX. One of 11 prints in the country. Stoked to watch it. We'll report on the top and bottom of the screen and tell you how good it won't look on the Blu-ray, because they probably won't have that version out. But it'll be rad. I'm stoked to see it. It's going to be a good time. If you enjoyed the show today, Off Script episode 269, best way to support us is just subscribe. Subscribe to the show on your favorite platform, wherever you're watching and or listening right now. Audio listeners, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Amazon Music. Hit that sub button, man. You thought about it before. You've been here. You've been in these shoes. You've been in this place. You can also leave a rating and review. That'd be a huge help as well. Comment if you're able. I know a couple of those services can do it. Let us know what you think, man. We read them. I swear. We follow up. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the usual social media places. You can give us a follow over there as well. You can hit us with a comment as well, and we're on YouTube. Big things happening on YouTube. You can check out what we got going on over there. Let's see. You can check out our website, offscriptfilmreview.com, and you can email us correspondence directly at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. From all of us at Offscript, the home of Bold Cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.